and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our new site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Hello, welcome to the Foreign Policy Review. I am Dustin Pickering, your host, and we have CARLO PARCELLI and Billy Bob with us as usual as co-host, and we're going to talk a little bit about a critique of the alternative media with Leo in a little bit. He's been on our show before. He should be joining us shortly. He's not quite in yet, but we will have him from straight out of Berlin in a little while. So just keep on watching and we'll see what he has to say. Carlo, I believe you wanted to say something about Billy Bob here in the opening of the program. So please go ahead.
Yeah, before I think we ought to discuss Zelensky's trip to Washington briefly before we get into the main theme of the program. But I just wanted to say one thing about the program in general and about Billy Bob finds most of the people who we have as guests on the program. And the reason we have him do that is because he's very articulate when it comes to discussing his position, and he's very willing to kibitz with people, to have dialogue with people, which I frankly am not. And so, but the people he gets are primarily people who share some of his views and historical and political background, and they happen to be Marxists. I want to say something in defense of these guests we have. They know what they're talking about. That's important to our program, that they know something about the world. I don't want to speak for Dustin, but I'll speak for myself. The people I know, well, they're just a bunch of virtue signalers when it comes to something like Ukraine. They don't know shit from Shinola about Ukraine. But the people we have on the program, through Billy Bob, who are primarily Marxists, they know what they're talking about. That's why they're here. And I just wanted to make that clear before we went into this the meat discussion of today, which I'm going to turn over to Billy Bob and Leo, who has now appeared here in just a moment. But I have high praise for the people that Billy Bob has on the show, and high praise for the guests we've had on this show. These are people who really care, who have really taken the time to learn something about the world situation and have a vast knowledge. And that's what we're here for. We're not here to have a bunch of virtue signalers on here that you have to explain what the Maidan coup in 2014 was or what the Minsk Accords was. To hell with that. We're beyond that. I just wanted to get that out initially. And thank you, Leo, for appearing again on the show. Great to see you.
Thank you very much, Leo. If you'd like to give us a brief introduction of yourself and what you're doing in Berlin right now, and just tell us a little bit for our new maybe our new viewers out there who aren't familiar with you.
Hey guys, good to be on again. Thank you for having me. I'm over here in Berlin doing too many things. I'm doing Marxist fashion. I'm doing revolutionary essay writing. I'm doing public speaking. I'm doing a lot of music as well, because ultimately everything really is connected. Yeah, and also podcasting. I'm
excellent.
About to start something, but anyway, not going to. ruin the surprise.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
Merry
good to be with
Christmas to
you
you and to Berlin.
guys. Sorry?
Everybody
Thanks,
up on
Leo.
Christmas Day.
Yeah, it's really dark here. It's like it's just turned 6 p.m. and it's completely like midnight.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
a little contrast to your brightness. A little yin to
Yin and yang
I
here.
mean, my assumption is that the darkness is of your choosing, as opposed to the grids not functioning at full force. Is that true, Leo? I mean, is the darkness a result of
We don't have
the economic?
blackouts yet.
What's that?
We don't have rolling blackouts yet.
Okay.
There's still
That's
a
good.
little bit of Russian energy left in the
Yeah.
tanks.
So Leo, thanks for coming on the show. Carlo was very nice in his introduction. He was praising, the guests that we've had. And he made a distinction. He said, they might be Marxists, but they know their shit. So, and that's great. I mean, I appreciate the lack of rejection of people just because they're Marxists. But as a Marxist, I kind of think that Marxists, get things correct. And one of the things that we were going to talk about on the program today was, the streamers, the YouTube personalities that we all watch and enjoy, because they're such a great antidote from the mainstream media. So, the mainstream media sets the bar so low. I mean, it's like a negative bar. And so anybody that comes on and says something's 10% knowledgeable or relevant, we eat it up. But I think that as good as they are in comparison with the mainstream media, I think there's a lot to be desired. And there's a broad spectrum of these streamers, from the Gray Zone to the Duran to that guy, the New Atlas with Brian Berletic. There's a big range from conservative to left leaning. I think the Duran is more conservative, but as Marxists, Leo, we definitely have a criticism, and there's definitely a lot to be desired across the board. And I was hoping that maybe we can try and articulate maybe what's missing in their their approach and their the way they present things. I think maybe we can get at that. But I know you posted something on Facebook that got us in that direction, and I wholeheartedly agreed. But and then of course Carlo himself has his own criticisms and critiques of these people that have come to popularity since February. They've really come to popularity, and so what do you think? So I'd like to maybe just start off and say it's not easy to do what they do, and I wouldn't begin to think myself as superior to them as far as presentation or anything like that. They're very knowledgeable, and they do give great information that is invaluable, and we really appreciate them regardless of their shortcomings. But this, we were going to try and talk a little bit about their shortcomings, which isn't nice or fair, but I think it's true. So you wanna you have any thoughts about all that, Leo? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, of all the people that you have mentioned, I mean, it's a gray scale. It's a scale, right? The gray zone, I would say, is a little bit better, but I mean, all of these guys are very knowledgeable, and they can analyze and elucidate the things that happen, the details of the war and the details of the economics into a very, very expert degree level, many of them. And yeah, great work from all of the people that you mentioned. And I listen to them quite a bit. But yes, there is something missing, something crucial, something fundamental, something that reaches to the roots, to the root cause, the structural dimension, dynamic that animates all of the things that happened on the world stage, which is class. And all of these guys, not all of them, I mean, like I said, some more than others, you know, are missing that dimension, and so therefore their analysis doesn't fully explain. There's a point where they cannot explain, for example, like where their explanatory model breaks down. For example, why exactly is the West collapsing? Why is it? Why is the economic crisis happening since the 19, I would say, 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union? Um, they would give you some kind of abstract adage about the natural course of empires, like that stupid meme, like strong man, what is it, strong man builds, do revolutions, and then you know you know what I'm talking about, that meme. So what is missing is the class dimension. Even when they talk about economics, the owners of industry and resources and property controlling these states, and the entire economy run for their profit of a very, very few, that is at the center of the contradictions that are manifesting today. That is underneath everything. That is the dynamic that is animating all the wars, from like the fall of the Soviet Union gave the U.S. imperialists a blank check to sanction and bomb as they please, until they cannot anymore. The profit, is the rate of return is decreasing. That's a fundamental law. Um, so all of these things are missing in their analysis, and so I think they're, even though they're very good at what they do up to a certain point, I think it either breaks down, or even more dangerously, they reach false conclusions. For example, the reactionary tendencies of some of them, right? Neoliberalism alienates people, and it breaks down families, right? And families is what the working class is, the last thing that the working class has in a lot of ways, because people have to work three jobs under diminishing prospects of career and wealth, and people are so stressed and alienated, and the family is all the working class has left in a way. And so uh, but not seeing that it's neoliberalism that pits people against each other, when mega corporations own everything and run everything, and all of the public goods are destroyed. I mean, public institutions are destroyed, are dismantled after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when there's no more counterpart that to make sure that to ensure that Western capitalism is at least a little bit humane. So when all of that is gone, neoliberalism further atomizes society, and so these guys would blame it on progressive values that is destroying the family, that is creating havoc, right? And without seeing that is neoliberalism. It is a private corporation owning everything and running everything, that is making people distant from each other and breaking up the nuclear family. Now, as communists, we of course want to abolish the nuclear family eventually, when we reach communism, but not yet. We cannot. We have to separate ourselves from the ultra liberals who demand, like, we abolish gender now, we abolish the family now, we abolish religion now. Like, these things cannot be done now, because the fundamental problems have not been solved of private property and class. And so I often want to just say to these guys, you're, it's not the progressive values that is the problem, and a return to conservative values, to Christianity, to the family, is not a long term answer. is not any kind of answer. That's not going to bring back the golden age of capitalism. That's not going to bring back the 1950s, where a chicken in every pot and two cars in every garage. You know, things were so good in the 50s and 60s because the United States had just, taken over the entire world market, and their imperialist power, drawing upon sucking the blood of Africa, of South America, of Asia, made them so powerful. Like, that's another thing, right? Imperialism is a fundamental part of capitalism. It's inseparable. It is actually, what is happening right now on the world stage is making it clear that imperialism is actually an even more foundational uh, thing than the exploitation of workers by bosses and owners. The exploitation of the third world and the international exploitation is actually what enables the bosses in the USA, in Germany, in England to have so much power that is, invincible, that they can exploit the workers of England, of Germany, of the USA. So imperialism, of course, these guys, many of these guys, have a superficial understanding of. They do not see that the success of capitalism is based on exploitation of the third world. And um, I mean, when this is missing, all kinds of things go wrong. I mean, so they would explain, the success of liberal capitalism as, work ethic, and they would explain the success of China since the 2000s as work ethic.
Stealing, Leo. They steal. China steals. That's why they're successful.
Yeah. There's a reverse. There's absolutely a reversal of the truth. In many of these people's, yeah, they like see the truth about so many things, but they absolutely go with the Washington line on so many other things due to the lack of scientific understanding of society and conflict.
So, Leo, that was a really great explanation of things, and it got us headed, into the right direction about what exactly, Marxists feel is missing from these streamers. And I couldn't agree with you more. You did mention that communists want to abolish the nuclear family. Let's I mean, not by force, right? Like, communism doesn't plan on, ripping tearing families apart, taking babies from nurseries and putting them in the commune. But no, what Leo I think is getting at is that, after the class war is over and there's not this tug of war in society between the owners and the workers, we can experiment with what might work better. And so I think Leo thinks that, society could work better, if we don't have, special people in our lives called relatives, and if everybody is just, our brothers and sisters and comrades kind of thing. Maybe that's what Leo is getting at. But, I think if, society progresses in that way, I mean, that's great. If we discover that the nuclear family, holds us back from evolution, I mean, then yeah, it needs to go. I'm not sure that's the case. But anyway, I don't even want to get bogged down on that. But I know a lot of people. There's a lot of conservative communists, right? That value family and that value religion. And so communism isn't necessarily about abolishing those things. But as somebody who doesn't think that the truth claims of religion are correct, if religion ends up to no longer be in existence, so be it. But we're not looking to force anybody to believe a certain way about the nuclear family or religion.
Of course not. Maybe I should not have even mentioned that. I mean, I'm with the conservatives. I fully respect Christianity. I fully respect Islam. I fully respect Judaism. I fully respect the nuclear family. Fully, 100%. In this era, in this stage of global social development, Absolutely. I probably should not even have mentioned that, but the reality is that our species is a social. I mean, children have never been brought up by two people. Children have always been brought up by a big group of people that with high levels of trust, high levels of empathy. Children have always learned from many adults and received intimacy and
Mhm.
affection, education from many different adults, and that is our evolutionary reality. And I mean, at some point, like, this is very deep stuff, that, like, I mean, it's also important to keep in mind. But
Yeah, and I'm sorry for pointing it out because I didn't want to distract us, but I know there's not small-minded people, but there's some people who can't conceive of things past the family unit. So
for
I thought
now, I
I
hope
would.
we respect the nuclear family.
Right.
Men
Absolutely.
should be men, women should be women. I mean, the like, let's not go down the gender thing. But
Do
I
yeah.
you
just want
think
to say
that?
there's
Oh,
a
go ahead,
phrase that
Carlo.
covers the economics and the familiar. That's it's called the family business. So
Right.
you might want to elaborate on that a little bit. Go
I
ahead,
want to
Dustin.
ask that Leo, if you thought that there's like a sort of a bastardization of the individual character of people through capitalism, because I'm seeing there's a lot of narcissism, narcissistic tendencies among people now that I didn't see even in the '90s, going out now. Post pandemic, even pre pandemic. And I wondered if you thought that may have something to do with the nature of capitalism at root.
Yeah, of course. All of the social realities that we see, there's so many different dynamics, right? There we can talk about 1,000 different dynamics. The pornification of everything, the increasing, people working three jobs and having precarity being increasing factor in everyone's lives, and there's more and more anxiety, and there's more and more. I just read some statistics about mental illness.
Hmm.
Statistics, they have been rising dramatically in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years of neoliberalism, of public institutions being destroyed, there's no health care. There's no, I mean, children have no place to go after school. There's no public programs, that children are into, that are really good, that people that children, that teenagers want to engage in. I mean, of course, the education system is in shambles in the USA and many other neoliberal places. So, of course, the rise of narcissism, the rise of this intensely individualistic, even more than before, right? Even more than before, this hyper individualistic subjectivity that is unique to our era. It is, you are right. We have never seen this before. We are, I mean, in the West, in the collapsing neoliberal order, we are seeing things just progress into a much more intensified and accelerated way into a direction that is just more alienation and more separation, more and more ego and
Leo,
individualism.
it doesn't matter if you have any expert research into any situation, or if you've analyzed anything. Everybody's opinion is equal. Your opinion is no better than somebody else's about anything.
Right.
I've seen a lot of that, on social media. People just think that their opinion is just as valid, even though they don't know anything about what they're talking about. And
Ignorance is your expertise.
I think that's a little bit of a narcissistic mental illness that has been spawned by capital. Um, so, I'm very happy to hear about your podcast that you're thinking of starting. I think we can't wait to be on. Can't wait to be on. No. But no, I think there's a need. There's a need to talk about the fundamental reality of class, and an analysis of why things are they are through the lens of oppositional class interests and then the class struggle that results. Watching the whole Zelensky thing yesterday on CNN, like it's just amazing to me, how it's just, it's a big marketing campaign. It's marketing, and it's the rich people trying to sell their ideas. And when you think about it, I mean, that's what everything is. That's, they try and sell you their ideas on history. They try and sell your ideas on geopolitics. They try and sell us their ideas on geopolitics. And a lot of people buy it because they own the platforms of mass communication. And people just need to understand that, look, these capitalists, they have interests that are opposite your interests. They're not there to benefit you. They're there to further their interests, which are often the opposite of what your interests are. I don't want to start sounding like CARLO, but with the MFers and things like that. So, but yeah, it's just, to Marxists, it's so obvious. The breakdown of society on a class level, and how in the West it's the capitalist class that is the ruling class and the ownership class, and they are, they're selling us on this big advertising campaign about, and it's all designed. It's not based on facts. It's not based on reality. It's just, they're just trying to sell us some shit. And people need to wake up.
I noticed a lot of the people on the libertarian rights, the side sort of very pro-capitalist, they tend to say things like, we've never seen more human betterment than now. There's so much wealth, exponential wealth, and there's very little war and violence and, et cetera. There's other stuff. So how do you respond to that, any of you? I mean, because it's an interesting question. Where there's a very different worldview from what we're presenting and what I hear from their side. So it's interesting to hear what people have to say on that.
That's just pure ignorance. That's just pure ignorance of much of what's happening in the world. The violence of imperialism has been exported to foreign shores. In the Congo, from the year 1999 to 2007, 8 years, 40 million direct war deaths.
How many?
40 million.
14 million deaths 40, in the Congo.
40.
Oh, 40.
40. Direct death from war. And add to that the malnutrition, add to that the lack of medicine, add to that the entire infrastructure that does not exist for medicine, for all of that. I mean, we were looking at a catastrophe. I mean, this is on Wikipedia. Look at Wikipedia entry for the Second Congolese War. 40 million direct war deaths. I mean, these people are just purely fucking ignorant.
Yeah,
I'm doing my CARLO impersonation here.
Dustin, my response would be that poverty has actually increased over the last 40 years. If it were not for the People's Republic of China, if it was not for the Communist Party of China, global poverty would have increased tremendously. So it's the Communist Party that is responsible for the decrease in poverty that we have enjoyed. So there's a lot of angles to knock down the argument, reality-based angles, but fundamentally, it assumes that capitalism is beneficial, and capitalism is definitely an advancement to feudalism. But it's not the be all end all. It's not where we need to stop, right? Because progress needs to continue, and how we continue the progress is to make sure that the things that society needs to exist, the things that it needs to survive, we don't have to profit off of that. We don't have to bring in the profit motive and allow a tiny minority of wealthy, rich, billionaires, oligarchs, and plutocrats to benefit off of our health care. We need health care, but we don't need to, people don't need to get obscenely rich off of it. Plus, they don't need to control our politics, right? We can have actual democracy as opposed to, capitalist class dictatorship, which is what they give us now. So we need to take a break. Carlo or
break.
Justin, you want to get us out to
we'll
our
take a brief break, and we'll be back. Just hey, if you guys are watching right now, subscribe to our channel, Foreign Policy Review. We'll be right back after this brief break. Thanks for watching. Break.
allegedly.
We had we
Wait,
have a little bit of a pause in the break coming. So
what are we doing commercials or what?
yeah, just a brief commercial. Let me pull it up real quick because I think our
Okay.
producer fell asleep.
Like
on it.
our opening.
Yeah. We just grabbed something on here. Here we go. Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony Rivecchio's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony Rivecchio, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University. Hey, welcome back. Do you know that there is a publishing company? Are we going to have that break, or are we going to go back to There's a little bit of confusion on the production end. Anyway, we're back. Foreign Policy Review. We have Leo today with us, and CARLO Parcelli and Billy Bob as co-hosts. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to our channel if you like what we're presenting. So, continue with this. Any more questions? Any more angles we want to present?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leo. Go ahead.
Sorry. Can I just add a bit about the Congo? About the violence that has been exported that we don't see in the imperial core, that we don't see in the US or in Europe. The violence in the Congo is a part of global capitalism. It is a part of the super profits of Western corporations because the minerals that those wars are fought over. The chaos and the war keeps the price of those minerals low, artificially low, extremely low for Western corporations. And these places, entire regions, continents, are kept underdeveloped. Their development is prevented by all of these measures, creating chaos and war, debt, coercion, the militarization, AFRICOM based in Germany, the militarization of Africa. This is directly part of the success of capitalism. I mean, capitalism and colonialism is two sides of the same coin. And I would argue colonialism and imperialism is the more fundamental, the more causal, the more foundational dynamic. So, like when people talk about the success of capitalism, it is based on the sucking of blood of Africans, of Asians and South Americans. I mean, why are those places so poor? People cannot answer that question without falling back onto racism.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's their culture, Leo. It's their culture. It's not their race. It's their culture.
It's the same.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Whether race created the culture, or I mean.
But yeah, for sure. So the impoverishment and the denial of progress and development. So the West definitely obstructs the development of the third world, so they can remain exploitable. No doubt. I mean, that is a basic feature of Western imperialism, is to keep those countries, corrupt, keep a handful of rich people that facilitate the transfer of wealth out of those countries and into the West. And if somebody like Lumumba or Sankara, comes to power and starts to put in policies to benefit the people of that country and at the expense of Western corporations, the West just kills them over and over again. I mean, that's the history of neocolonialism. So.
Only through this angle can we understand the war with Russia. the proxy war against Russia, because Putin is not a communist, at least on it doesn't seem like one on the surface. He's not. I'm not going to say he is. He's not. But he did renationalize core Russian industries and wrestle them out of the hands of the global neoliberal private ownership to
Yeah.
rescue, to bring Russia back to health from being bled dry in the 90s when the West loved Russia. The West loved Russia when they had a free lunch buffet at Russia's expense. When Russia's child human trafficking was going through the roof. When Russia was basically bleeding to death with all limbs broken. The West loved Russia, and then Putin. They loved Putin as well because they thought Putin was going to be one of their boys that's going to cooperate with the imperialist order. But no, Putin renationalized everything. But see, and then these guys say that, see, nationalism is good, right? Sure, nationalism is good. Sovereignty is good, but it's about class. Like Putin is not empowering the oligarchs or whatever. The oligarchs are under his thumb. Actually, a significant faction of them. Anyhow,
so I think everything I said about Sankara and Lumumba applies to Putin, right? Because they would have been happy with Putin if he would have facilitated the transfer of his country's wealth. But Putin was like, no, I'm a nationalist. I'm for Russia, and I'm not going to allow you guys to come in and rape our, continue to rape our resources for your own benefit, and then keep our people impoverished. So the quality of life for the average Russian has improved tremendously after Putin put a stop to the wholesale exploitation of his country's resources. And he had to be, he had to be strong in order to get the Western-backed oligarchs under control, which is, of course, the platform which he ran on and which made him so popular, and why he's so popular today, and why he continues to win election after election in Russia. But you're absolutely right. That's great stuff. He's not nominally a communist. You can't say he's a communist, but he is putting in place policies and he's defending the interests of the nation of Russia at the expense of Western corporations. And so, his actual, go ahead.
And the national bourgeoisie as well. He defeated the national bourgeoisie. This is one thing that the Durand gets right, that a lot of the Russian, they're not oligarchs at all. They have no political power. A lot of the super rich people in Russia hate Putin. That's why they live in Paris and Brussels and all of these places. And instead of in Russia, because they hate Putin, because they're against Putin, and then the Western media gives them a megaphone to talk about how much of a dictator Putin is, and how repressive he is, which is almost kind of similar to what happens in China. But I
wanted to interject something here. Go back to Congo and mention an important reporter that was ignored almost entirely by the West. His name is Keith Harmon Snow, and he lived in Congo for many years, and his reporting out of Congo was priceless. And I wrote a long poem actually called Congo Redux, and based on the research I did from Keith Harmon Snow and a number of books published about Congo. And Keith Harmon Snow had this to say in one of his articles published where he could get it published, Covert Action magazine, places like that. Starvation happens not because this is Africa or the Congo. It is because we are witnessing the most devastating example of predatory capitalism and heartless absolute greed combined with a spiritual crisis in the first world of unprecedented proportions, which is essentially what Leo has been saying here. And I just wanted to put it, basically he's retired from reporting now, but I just wanted to say that he really deserves a hearing if you ever come across his material, especially on the Congo. He's very prescient.
If we're going truly radical, I think the conservatives or the not conservatives, the the non-Marxists here, might not be fully convinced by what we are saying. Let me just add one thing. Oftentimes with colonialism, it is the people that are most spiritually enriched and resource enriched as well that are the most victimized by colonialism, because these cultures, it is their culture, absolutely, because these cultures spent most of their energy not on making weapons, not on devising new ways of making war. It is because the focus of many of these countries in a broad general, I do believe this is absolutely true, the broad general statement that many of these more intact, more cohesive cultures to their tradition are more focused on things like creating culture, and healing. I mean, the Peruvian encyclopedia of herbal medicine was just released some years ago. Multinational corporations, pharmaceutical corporations, have been fighting over the rights of indigenous herbal knowledge of the San people of South Africa, the Khoisan, probably the oldest surviving civilization, uh, very different civilization than modern civilizations, have been fighting over the rights of herbal medicine knowledge of the San people, of the indigenous Khoisan people, for decades. I mean, we are talking like massive knowledge of herbal medicine and things that we have no idea about. I mean, it's truly, there's a vast uh, bodies of knowledge which capitalism destroys and tries to profit off of. So, like, really, places like the Congo and many other places, for many other reasons as well, but similar reasons, is that they concentrated not on making war and not on conquest, because they have a different political philosophy. Like, if you read, I mean, traditional African political philosophy is unknown in the West completely. This is a blank space where it should be. Like, we should all be taught indigenous political philosophy, which is very advanced, which is very, very sophisticated, of Africa and of China as well. I mean, China is similar in some ways. It is similar. The Chinese civilization, the monarchies, we invented gunpowder, and we didn't make guns with them. We literally made fireworks, and everybody's like, "Oh, look, pretty colors."
Yeah,
And
and you mentioned that.
yeah,
And
we
you
lot of
invented
the
gunpowder, and then the British came back and made it into guns. Anyway,
I was going to say also the Iroquois nation that had something called Longhouse, which was like sort of like a federalism of sorts. Our founding fathers based a lot of the Federalist principles on Longhouse, on that principle. So yeah, I mean that's very true. I mean it's like these guys sitting down, they're very intelligent, historically knowledgeable people, and they couldn't come up with an idea like that, and that's something that was sort of put together by necessity through all the conflicts that were going on in the Iroquois Nation. They had to pull together and find some sort of solution together, and that's what they come up with. And that's indigenous. It's there. It's already, the principles are there, and we had to steal them to make this nation. I mean,
and the
yeah,
contrast in Africa couldn't be greater
yeah,
between AFRICOM and the Belt and Road Initiative, but between the
right,
United
right.
States presenting a security framework, whereas the Chinese are presenting a development framework. It could not be more. It could not be more black and white.
And the 40 million deaths, like I didn't know that many people died in the Congo in the last. So when they're selling their product of imperialism, when they're selling capitalism to the masses, they leave those little tidbits out. Oh, we're the greatest. It's the greatest, way of life. It's the greatest economic system that's ever existed. Capitalism. How can you be against capitalism? If you're against capitalism, you're evil. But when they try and sell us that idea, they leave out, yeah, it cost 40 million people to die in the Congo between 1999 and 2007. So, that's one of the benefits when you own the platforms of mass communication. You can pick and choose those things that you tell everybody.
You don't hear about that in the mass media at all, the Congo. Yeah, you don't even hear
And
about Leopold. Was it Leopold II?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, only through Heart of Darkness
17 million.
do I even know about
Yeah, I mean,
who that is.
Yeah.
I mean, right now the decolonization thing is very trendy, but they only talk about the past. They don't talk about the neocolonialism that is just as brutal that is happening today.
Yeah.
Right.
And names to remember in the history of the Congo are G.W. Williams, William Shepard, Edmund Morrell, Roger Casement, and Keith Harmon Snow. If anybody's interested in researching them, which I did for a couple of years. So, yeah. How about this Zelensky thing? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Well, we got about 15 minutes. I think we
Yeah.
can
I mean,
cover that in
if you don't want to go there, Leo, just let me know.
Did you watch any of the? He had a press conference after meeting the president, and then he delivered a speech in front of Congress and the Senate, I think. Did you catch any of that, Leo?
I feel like I didn't need to. It's
Okay.
I don't think I'm missing anything.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say about and in the way of a criticism of the way some of the podcasts are being handled from the left?
From the left, or you mean just these popular geopolitics analysts? Because some of them would be culturally on the right. But anyway, yeah. If they don't understand class, then they don't understand socialism. And they see through the lies about Russia. They see through the lies about even Iraq and Afghanistan and all these wars. And on a superficial level, they see through all these lies, but they do not see the lies about communism, which is like the biggest lie that is underlying all of these lies. It is the mama tree of lies that gives fruit that bears all the amazing fruits of all these other smaller lies, right? they don't see that. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
Even Brian Berlick would talk about how he'd get a lot of people that saw through the anti-Russian lies, but they believed all the anti-China lies. And there's just so many lies that, and I agree with you. The fundamental bottom line lie is the lie that there's no such thing as class, and it's not a concept that has any value or merit. And that's the biggest lie I think that underlies everything. But yeah, I mean, people pick and choose the lies that they want to believe, and it's just bizarre. Trying to figure it out, identifying where somebody's coming from, and then trying to explain things to them. It's a full-time job, but I already have a full-time job, so it's just exhausting.
Well,
yeah,
Mearsheimer. I'm sorry, even Mearsheimer has come out with this kind of bogus notion of the Chinese threat. So, and he gets Russia right on the money, and he misses China as Danny Haiphong and Ben Norton have so accurately pointed out, he misses them by a mile. And we get outrageous things on these podcasts. We get Colonel McGregor claiming that the United States never killed innocent people in war. I mean, he actually he shut Aaron Mate down, who apparently was not prepared to say, look, you're basically wrong about this, McGregor. And I guess because he didn't want to lose him as an analyst on the show. But neither Mate or Max Blumenthal challenged McGregor on this very obvious thing. I mean, My Lai is just, Ben Sup. Oh my God, there's 1,000 examples of U.S. executing innocent people.
So it's obvious where McGregor lies to himself.
Yeah. I used to kibitz with Colonel Harry Summers because I used to buy books from him, and he never went that far. I was just and unchallenged on a broadcast. And then to expand and get anecdotal a little bit about it while we're coming toward the end of the show, is Jimmy Dore, for example. He's interesting because when it comes to foreign policy, I always give them a thumbs up. When it comes to COVID on January 6th, I give them a thumbs down. And you can see the difference in the comments. The comments about imperialism, which he gets right, are generally from people who are on the left. The comments he gets about COVID January 16th, those are Breitbart people. So he's appealing to the Breitbart people because he's calling COVID essentially a hoax, along with Max Blumenthal, and he's denying the efficacy of the action of what occurred on January 6th. And I'll tell you something. I've been to a lot of demonstrations up down at the Capitol, okay? I filmed them. I taped them. I got a whole fucking room full of old VHS, if you care to watch, okay? I worked closely with Central American groups like CISPAS for years. I got tapes of them, and I got tapes of people being arrested for a lot less than what those fuckers did down at the Capitol that day. Now, if I can go down there and get my ass arrested for just being there and filming a fucking protest, those fuckers can get arrested and convicted for doing what they did, okay? That's the bottom line for me. If you can't see that line for January 6th, you're an idiot as far as I'm concerned. Because if I went down there now with my camera looking like I do, and I was filming a protest about murder of African Americans by police, I'd get my fucking ass arrested. So I don't want to hear that shit, you know. And when Jimmy Dore does that shit, or Max Blumenthal does that shit, who lives here in DC, they really are essentially supporting far right crazy people, far right idiots. Nothing that. So there's that distinction to be made. There's the fine distinctions that they can't seem to be made. And I get a lot of people now who agree with me when it comes to COVID. There is, yes, Big Pharma's a big ripoff. But there's a distinction between people who know virology and people who came out with the antidote to the virus, and the people who are in the business of marketing these viruses and selling them. So, and the way you can understand that distinction is there are over 8 billion people on this goddamn planet now, and fewer than 7 million have died. That's an amazing success rate for Big Pharma. When I hear these lefty people go, well, it's a way of thinning the herd, I go, well, then why did fucking Pfizer step in and prevent the thinning of the fucking herd? Because under 7 million people out of 8 billion is not squat. In the United States, there's 332 million people, and only 1.1 million have died from COVID. So just shut the fuck up, Jimmy. Shut the fuck up, Max. Shut the fuck up, Hinkle. Shut the fuck up. That's what I was going to offer as regards these shows, because there's a point where these people can't think. I mean, and Hinkle can't even pronounce words. He actually, on one of his shows, in an article he was reading, all he does is read articles, there was the word SEOUL, and he could not pronounce it. How do you pronounce this? He goes, Seoul. It's Seoul, South Korea, you moron.
Well, I mean, these guys get a lot of things wrong. Yeah. I mean, they get a few things right as well. Like everybody gets some things wrong. But can I just say one thing about China? Like when we were talking about why we, it's not about nationalism. It's not about the civilization. It's not about the culture. Like, yeah, Chinese culture, Chinese civilization. Like people accuse me of being a nationalist. When people accuse me of being a nationalist, I will say, fuck China. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about Chinese food, culture, anything. Yeah, the food is good. Yeah, the old paintings are nice. Yeah, but like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I support China because it is run by the working class. Because the big capital in China do not have political power. Because the super rich China which do exist, we are seeing their power. They never had political power to begin with, but we are seeing their exorbitant fortunes being toned down, being restricted. And so when all of these people, these geopolitical analysts, when they talk about China, oh yeah, it's a great civilization, and this point of view is valid to a certain point is valid to a certain point. China is just reclaiming its place on the world stage. It has been, the center of economic activity for 2,000, 3,000 years. I mean, this is valid, but how it is able to do that, whereas India has lagged behind, whereas other countries have lagged behind, is only by proletarian power, working class power. The owners of property do not control politics, do not make policy. That's the only way, super high speed rail can be built. I mean, it's very, very simple. I mean, why can super speed high speed rail not be built in California, the most leftist part of the USA, right? Why is it not possible? I mean,
and even Elon Musk would agree with that. I mean, and he's in there with Tesla and whatnot, and I watched a video with him saying exactly that. So he would agree with you.
Yeah, we will see what happens with.
You can't get you can't purchase the right of way for a reasonable price to make the railway profitable. There has to be more of a public dimension to it.
And that's a constraint on society. When things can only be done if they're profitable, that's a huge constraint on society. And China doesn't have that constraint. China does things at a loss if they benefit the people. I mean, they have entire industries running at a loss. Their steel industry, I think. But it's beneficial for the society. It's beneficial for the working class. So they're not constrained by these pathetic restraints that capitalists put on themselves. And then we accuse China of cheating when they're not restrained by these market, by the market rules. When they don't constrain themselves by being profitable or market rules, we call that cheating, and we denounce them, and now we want to overthrow them because they're demonstrating how superior a proletarian government is to a capitalist government. And they can't allow that to manifest itself even more than it is, and so they're gonna do an economic war against China, a new Cold War, and we'll see where that goes. But we will definitely be on this program pointing it out every Thursday. And Leo, thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to watching your upcoming debut. You've given us a lot of suspense.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
you guys are awesome.
Leo. And thanks for
and please subscribe to the channel. Everybody watching right now, if you've stuck to us to the end, please subscribe. Go back and watch. Leave some comments for us on the podcast today, and just tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you. So we're closing in on the end here. Carlo and Billy Bob, thank you, and thank you, Leo, for joining us. So we're signing off, and it's been a wonderful, productive discussion. Did you want to say something else, Leo?
No. I was just doing a hand signal. I was doing the gang sign.
Oh, okay.
It's a hammer sickle. It's a very abstracted hammer sickle. I don't know if you can see
okay,
it.
interesting.
There you go.
Interesting. All right, thank you for joining us today. And thanks to our viewers. Please subscribe to our channel. See you next time, Thursday, same time, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a